I am about to reveal a specific leaf extract that acts as a dual force agent, helping to stabilize your daily blood sugar readings while simultaneously encouraging your arterial walls to remain flexible and open. This natural compound has been studied for its ability to mimic the effects of certain standard protocols, yet it is often overlooked in routine senior care discussions. I remember a gentleman named Arthur, age 74, who felt trapped by rising glucose numbers and stiffening arteries despite following a strict diet. He was doing everything right but saw little progress. Once we addressed this specific gap in his routine, along with a few other adjustments I will share today, his morning readings settled into a much safer range and his circulation improved noticeably. It is quite possible that your own healthcare provider has focused heavily on pharmaceutical interventions without mentioning how powerful this specific plant compound can be when added to a healthy regimen. Before we begin, a critical disclaimer. The information I'm sharing today is strictly for educational purposes and should not be considered medical advice. I am not your personal physician and cannot provide individualized medical guidance through this video. Never stop, start, or change any diabetes or blood pressure medication without first consulting with your doctor. 1. Olive leaf extract. The most impactful action you can consider today is introducing a standardized olive leaf extract into your daily routine to target both insulin sensitivity and arterial stiffness. This is distinct from olive oil. It is a concentrated form of the leaves themselves, which contain potent compounds often missing from the oil. The primary reason this matters is that the active compound, oleuropein, works to relax blood vessels and improve how your cells accept sugar, addressing two major senior health concerns simultaneously. I recall treating a patient named Robert, age 72, who struggled with what we call the stubborn plateau, where his blood sugar would not drop below a certain number regardless of his carbohydrate restriction. He began using this extract, and within 6 weeks we observed that his fasting numbers had broken through that plateau, and he reported feeling less lethargic after meals. To understand why this works, we must look at the relationship between your blood vessels and your insulin response without getting bogged down in complex chemistry. When your arteries are stiff, your heart works harder, and your blood flow is less efficient, which actually makes it harder for insulin to deliver glucose to your cells. Olive leaf extract helps specifically because it encourages the production of nitric oxide, a molecule that signals your arteries to relax and widen. At the same time, recent studies suggest that the polyphenols in the leaf slow down the digestion of starches into simple sugars. This means that instead of a rapid spike that damages your blood vessels, you get a slower, more manageable release of energy. It essentially acts as a gentle brake on your digestion while simultaneously opening up the highways of your circulatory system. Incorporating this into your life requires attention to the label and the quality of the supplement you choose, as raw leaves are not practical to eat. You should look for a capsule supplement that specifically states it is standardized to roughly 15% to 20% oleuropein, which ensures you are getting the active ingredient rather than just dried leaf dust. Most seniors find success by taking 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams daily, usually split into 2 doses taken with meals to prevent any potential stomach upset. It is consistent usage that matters most here. This is not a quick fix that works in an hour, but rather a cumulative support system that builds up in your tissues over several weeks. You might also find it as a tea, but the extract in capsule form is generally more reliable for consistent dosing. There is one important caution to keep in mind regarding this powerful leaf, specifically if you are already on medication for hypertension or diabetes. Because olive leaf extract is effective at naturally lowering blood pressure and blood sugar, combining it with high doses of medication can sometimes cause your numbers to drop too low, leading to dizziness or hypoglycemia. It is a sign of the leaf's potency, not a danger, but it means you must monitor your numbers closely and keep your doctor informed so they can adjust your prescription if your natural health improves. This supports steadier readings and a healthier heart without adding complex chemical burdens to your system. 2. The green starter method. Your second step is to change the order in which you eat your food by consuming a serving of fiber-rich green vegetables before you touch any carbohydrates or proteins on your plate. This technique, often called meal sequencing, is one of the most effective non-pharmaceutical ways to blunt the blood sugar spike that typically occurs after eating. I once worked with a patient named Susan, age 65, who was frustrated because she loved having rice with her dinner but feared the inevitable glucose spike that would ruin her evening numbers. By simply eating her broccoli and green beans first, waiting just 5 minutes before eating the rice, she found that her post-meal blood sugar peak was significantly lower than when she ate everything mixed together. The mechanism behind this is mechanical rather than chemical, which makes it incredibly reliable for seniors who have varying metabolic rates. When you eat fiber-rich vegetables first, they travel to your stomach and intestine where they form a fibrous mesh or lattice-like network. This network acts like a physical filter or a sieve that sits at the bottom of your stomach. When you subsequently eat carbohydrates like potatoes, rice, or bread, the glucose from those foods must pass through this fiber mesh to be absorbed into your bloodstream. This physical barrier slows down the gastric emptying process, meaning the sugar trickles into your blood slowly rather than flooding it all at once. It essentially turns a high glycemic meal into a moderate one without you having to change the actual foods you are eating, just the order. Implementing this strategy is straightforward and requires no special equipment or expensive ingredients, only a slight shift in your table habits. When you sit down to lunch or dinner, serve your vegetables on a separate small plate or simply make a conscious effort to finish the green portion of your meal first. Good examples of starters include a small garden salad with vinegar dressing, steamed asparagus, roasted Brussels sprouts, or sautéed spinach. You should chew these vegetables thoroughly and, if possible, wait roughly 5 to 10 minutes before starting on the starches or meats, although even eating them immediately before helps. Do not count starchy vegetables like corn, peas, or potatoes as your starter because they contain too much sugar. Focus on the leafy or crunchy variety. A reinforcing aspect of this habit is that it often naturally reduces your appetite for the more calorie-dense parts of the meal, helping with weight management without the feeling of deprivation. You are filling your stomach with high-volume, low-calorie food first, which triggers satiety signals to your brain earlier in the meal. This supports steadier readings throughout the evening and can lead to better fasting numbers the next morning because your body isn't struggling to clear a massive glucose load while you sleep. It is a gentle, sustainable way to regain control over your post-meal physiology. 3. Magnesium-rich cooked greens. The third item is the consistent consumption of cooked dark leafy greens like spinach, Swiss chard, or beet greens, specifically to target magnesium deficiency, which is rampant in adults over 60. Magnesium is absolutely essential for helping your body process sugar and for allowing your blood vessels to relax, yet it is becoming harder to get from modern diets. I remember a patient named James, age 70, who suffered from frequent leg cramps at night and slowly creeping blood pressure numbers, both of which were dismissed as normal aging. Once we introduced a simple daily serving of cooked chard into his diet, not only did his cramps disappear, but his blood vessel elasticity improved and his insulin resistance markers began to trend downward. The connection between magnesium and your metabolic health is profound because magnesium acts as a key that unlocks the cells to let glucose inside. Without sufficient magnesium, your insulin cannot function properly. It knocks on the door of the cell, but the door remains locked, causing sugar to pile up in the blood. Furthermore, magnesium is the primary mineral responsible for the relaxation phase of muscle and artery function. If calcium helps muscles contract and arteries stiffen, magnesium helps them release and widen. By eating these greens, you are providing the raw material your vascular system needs to dilate, lowering pressure within the tubes and allowing blood to flow freely to your extremities and organs. To get the most benefit, it is important to focus on cooked greens rather than raw salads for this specific purpose, as the cooking process breaks down the tough cellular walls and makes the minerals much more available for absorption. You can simply steam a large bunch of spinach or Swiss chard for 3 to 4 minutes until it is wilted and bright green, then season it with a little lemon juice and olive oil. The lemon juice adds vitamin C, which further aids in mineral absorption, while the fat in the oil is necessary for your body to utilize the fat-soluble vitamins present in the leaves. Aim for 1 cup of cooked greens per day. This volume shrinks down significantly from the raw state, so you are actually consuming a massive amount of nutrient density in a small package. While greens are generally safe, there is a minor caution for those who have a history of calcium oxalate kidney stones. Spinach and chard are high in oxalates, which can contribute to stone formation in susceptible individuals. If this is your medical history, you might opt for low oxalate greens like kale or collard greens, or simply ensure you are boiling the spinach and discarding the water, which reduces the oxalate content. For the vast majority of seniors, however, the benefits to arterial flexibility and glucose control far outweigh this risk. This simple dietary addition supports a relaxed vascular system and efficient energy metabolism. 4. The 10-minute post-meal walk. The fourth action is to engage in a low-intensity walk for 10 to 15 minutes immediately following your largest meal of the day. This is a same-day lever, meaning you will see the results on your blood glucose meter within hours of doing it, unlike other habits that take weeks to build. I recall a patient named Patricia, age 64, who was largely sedentary in the evenings and would watch television right after dinner, leading to very high bedtime glucose readings. By simply walking around her neighborhood or even marching in place in her living room during commercial breaks after eating, she was able to cut her post-meal spike nearly in half without changing what she ate. This works because of a physiological mechanism involving your large skeletal muscles, particularly in your legs and glutes. When you are at rest, your muscles require insulin to open the doors for glucose to enter. However, when your muscles are contracting and moving, they can bypass the insulin requirement entirely. The contraction itself triggers the muscle cells to open up and soak up glucose directly from the bloodstream to use as immediate fuel. You are essentially turning your leg muscles into a glucose sponge that mops up the sugar floating in your blood before it has a chance to do damage or trigger a massive insulin release. This is incredibly protective for your arteries because it prevents the oxidative stress that comes with high sugar spikes. The execution of this habit should be gentle and immediate. You do not need to speed walk, break a sweat, or wear special athletic gear. The goal is simply continuous movement, so a casual stroll at a conversation pace is perfectly adequate to trigger the mechanism. You should aim to start this movement within 30 minutes of finishing your last bite of food, as this is when the glucose is beginning to enter your bloodstream. If the weather is poor or you have mobility issues, simply standing up and doing gentle knee lifts or walking loops around your kitchen island works just as well. The key is to avoid sitting or lying down completely flat for that first hour after a heavy meal. It is important to view this not as exercise in the traditional sense, but as a digestive aid that is as important as the chewing of your food. Many seniors make the mistake of thinking they need to walk for an hour to see benefits, but studies show that short, frequent bouts of movement are actually more effective for blood sugar control than one long session. By clearing the glucose immediately, you also reduce the amount of insulin your pancreas needs to produce, giving that overworked organ a much-needed break. This supports steadier readings and preserves your long-term metabolic function. 5. Hydration and blood viscosity. The fifth item addresses a factor that is often the invisible culprit behind mysteriously high blood sugar readings, your hydration status and its direct effect on blood viscosity. Many seniors are chronically, mildly dehydrated because our thirst mechanism becomes less sensitive as we age, leading to blood that is physically thicker and more concentrated. I remember a patient named Martha, age 68, who would panic every morning because her fasting glucose was high, despite her eating a perfect low-carb dinner the night before. Upon close examination of her routine, we realized she stopped drinking liquids at 4 p.m. to avoid nighttime bathroom trips, meaning she was going nearly 16 hours without water. Once she began drinking a small glass of water upon waking and maintaining steady hydration throughout the day, those erratic morning spikes settled down significantly, revealing that her diabetes wasn't getting worse. Her blood was simply too concentrated. To understand this, you must visualize your blood not just as a red liquid, but as a solution containing water, cells, and dissolved solids like sugar and salt. When the water content drops due to dehydration, the remaining volume decreases, but the amount of sugar stays the same, which mathematically drives up the concentration reading on your glucometer. Furthermore, when your blood is viscous, think of it acting more like syrup than water. Your heart has to pump much harder to push it through the tiny capillaries in your eyes, kidneys, and feet. This sluggish flow means that glucose is not being delivered efficiently to the cells that need it, and your kidneys struggle to filter out the excess sugar because the filtration pressure is all wrong. Adequate water intake essentially dilutes the sugar concentration and acts as a transport medium that helps your kidneys flush out excess glucose through urine, which is one of your body's primary defense mechanisms against hyperglycemia. Implementing a hydration strategy requires balance, especially for those managing incontinence issues or heart failure constraints, so the goal is steady intake rather than flooding your system. The most critical time to hydrate is immediately upon waking, as you have just spent 8 hours losing moisture through breathing and perspiration. Start your day with 1 8-ounce glass of room temperature water before you even put on the coffee pot. This jumpstarts your metabolism and rehydrates your blood volume before breakfast. Throughout the day, a good visual cue is that your urine should be a pale straw color. If it is dark yellow, your blood is likely becoming too viscous. Aim to sip water consistently between meals rather than gulping huge amounts during meals, which can dilute digestive enzymes. There is a specific nuance here regarding blood pressure medication. If you are taking diuretics, water pills, your risk of dehydration is even higher, yet you must be careful not to overhydrate and negate the medication's effect. The best approach is to sip slowly and consistently. By keeping your blood volume optimized, you ensure that the readings you see on your meter are accurate and not falsely elevated by dehydration. This supports steadier readings and reduces the physical strain on your delicate arterial walls, allowing the other dietary changes you are making to work more effectively. 6. The soluble fiber sponge strategy. The sixth item involves the strategic use of a specific type of fiber, soluble fiber, to act as an internal barrier or sponge within your digestive tract. While we all know vegetables are good for us, adding a concentrated source of soluble fiber like psyllium husk or chia seeds can have a medicinal-grade effect on how your body absorbs calories. I recall a patient named David, age 71, who had a tremendous appetite and found it very difficult to stop eating before he felt overly full, which always led to post-meal sluggishness and high blood sugar. We introduced a simple habit of drinking a glass of water mixed with a teaspoon of psyllium husk 20 minutes before his lunch and dinner. Almost immediately, he reported feeling full much faster, and his hemoglobin A1C dropped by a full percentage point over 3 months because the fiber was physically trapping the sugar and cholesterol from his meals. The mechanism at work here is the formation of a gel-like substance when soluble fiber mixes with water in your stomach. This gel expands and coats the lining of the stomach and the upper intestine, creating a viscous matrix that traps food particles, sugar molecules, and even bile acids which contain cholesterol. Because the sugar is trapped inside this gel, your digestive enzymes have to work much harder and take much longer to break it down and release it into the bloodstream. This transforms a sharp, dangerous spike of glucose into a long, low, slow curve, which is exactly what we want for preserving insulin sensitivity and protecting artery walls from inflammation. It essentially mimics the effects of certain diabetes medications that are designed to slow gastric emptying, but it does so using a completely natural mechanical process. To do this correctly, you must start slowly to avoid bloating or gas, which can happen if you introduce too much fiber too quickly. Begin with just half a teaspoon of plain, unflavored psyllium husk powder or a tablespoon of chia seeds, mixed into a large glass of water once a day, preferably before your largest meal. It is crucial that you stir it briskly and drink it immediately before it thickens in the glass, and then follow it with another half glass of plain water to ensure it reaches your stomach efficiently. Over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, you can gradually increase this to a full teaspoon twice a day. You do not need the orange-flavored, sugar-filled versions found in drugstores. The plain husk is far superior and does not add unnecessary chemical sweeteners to your diet. A vital caution accompanies this habit. Fiber works by absorbing water, so if you take fiber without drinking enough water, it can cause constipation or even a blockage. You must commit to the hydration habit mentioned previously if you are going to use this fiber strategy. Additionally, if you take oral medications, separate them from your fiber drink by at least 2 hours, as the sponge effect can potentially trap your medication and reduce its absorption. When done correctly, however, this simple addition acts as an internal regulator, smoothing out the peaks and valleys of your blood sugar throughout the day. This supports steadier readings and actively lowers your cholesterol levels over the long term. 7. Circadian sleep consistency. The final item is a long-term lever that regulates your hormones, establishing a rigid, consistent sleep schedule to control the dawn phenomenon. Many seniors underestimate how profound the link is between poor sleep and high blood sugar, often assuming that their rising numbers are just a result of what they ate. I remember a patient named Eleanor, age 66, who considered herself a night owl and would sleep at irregular hours, sometimes waking at 6 a.m., other times at 10 a.m. She struggled constantly with high fasting blood sugar levels, often over 130 mg/dl, even though she never ate after 7 p.m. Once we corrected her circadian rhythm by forcing a consistent wake-up time, her body stopped dumping stress hormones in the early morning, and her fasting numbers dropped into the healthy range of roughly 90 to 100 mg/dl within a month. The science behind this involves cortisol, the stress hormone, which acts in direct opposition to insulin. Under normal circumstances, your body releases a surge of cortisol early in the morning to help you wake up. This signals your liver to dump a little bit of stored sugar into your blood for energy. However, when your sleep is fragmented, inconsistent, or poor in quality, your body perceives this as chronic stress and releases excessive amounts of cortisol, often at the wrong times. This excess cortisol makes your cells resistant to insulin and causes your liver to dump far too much sugar into your bloodstream, causing that frustrating morning spike. By stabilizing your sleep window, you train your body's internal clock to release hormones in a predictable, controlled manner rather than in chaotic, panic-induced surges. The actionable step here is to prioritize your wake-up time above all else, as this anchors your circadian rhythm more effectively than your bedtime. Set a specific time to get out of bed every single morning, 7 days a week, regardless of how well you slept the night before. Exposure to morning light within the first 30 minutes of waking is also crucial. Sit by a window or step outside, as the natural light signals your brain to reset its chemical timer for the day. In the evening, create a digital sunset by turning off bright screens and televisions 1 hour before your intended sleep time, as the blue light from these devices suppresses melatonin and confuses your metabolic hormones. Keep your bedroom cool, ideally between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, as cooler temperatures promote deeper, more restorative sleep cycles where blood sugar regulation occurs. It is important to understand that this is a long-term strategy. One good night of sleep will not fix your blood sugar, but weeks of consistent rhythm will reshape your hormonal landscape. If you suffer from loud snoring or chronic fatigue, ask your doctor to check for sleep apnea, a condition that causes massive blood sugar spikes due to oxygen deprivation stress during the night. Treating the sleep issue is often the missing key that unlocks the door to better metabolic health when diet and exercise alone seem to have stalled. This supports steadier readings by addressing the root hormonal cause of insulin resistance. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video and subscribe for more simple health tips.